Hello everyone, welcome back. We are now less than one day away from the presidential debate, and I wanted to quickly get this video in before then. In this video, we're looking at all the polling averages from every state, so we're basically map off all the polling averages. And at the same time, I just want to point this out that obviously we do have some major changes, and we'll get into those. And also the obvious thing is that the presidential debate will clearly have a major impact on this election. So I want to get this out now to show you guys where everything sits now, and then we'll see what happens when the debate happens, and we'll see who's going to win that debate, and then we'll see how the polls change. We're going to start with California. I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit shorter and sweeter for you guys. We're not going to look at every single poll. So because it's California, Oregon, and Washington none of them have changed. Alaska, we know what Alaska is. We know what Hawaii is. These states have not changed at all from my last video. California is still up 24.5% for Harris. Oregon and Washington are both in the likely region. That just has not changed. Let's just quickly now fill in all the safe red states. I'll change that 1 second. So we know what this is going to be. There we go. So there we go. Anyways, so now let's go to our first battleground state. That is the state of Nevada. All right. Here we go, Nevada. In my last video, I gave Nevada to Trump because the newest poll had him up by 1%. But we can see here in the polling averages, Harris is leading by a small but existing 0.6%. So you can see the state was very close to 2020 and 2016 by the same margin. So we have no choice but to give the state to Kamala Harris. For the very first time, we'll be awarding the state to her by a lean margin. And while we're at it, I should point this out now. I should did this at the beginning. But if we look here, I mentioned in my last video how Harris reached her peak lead in the national polling at 1.9% ahead of Donald Trump. Yeah, that was her peak at 1.9% ahead of Donald Trump. But then since then, Donald Trump has slimmed down the lead down to 1.4%. But now, look at this. It is now dropped to 1.3 yesterday, and today 1.2. Donald Trump is now, as of recently, he is dropping that. He is closing in on Kamala Harris by 0.1% every day. If he keeps it up, and if he's able to keep this up and just give it a little bit over a week, he might actually be able to catch up to Kamala Harris in the national polling averages. We'll have to see if this Trump surge does continue, because Trump is surging right now. Aside from Nevada, which has flipped to Kamala Harris, we'll get some other important things. Let's go to Arizona now. Arizona hasn't changed from my last video, but as you can clearly see, Trump is starting to again pull away pretty heavily. CNN even has him up by 5%. In the polling averages, he's up by 1.6%. So I put the state as likely in my last video, but because this is 1.6%, I will be putting it back down to lean because this is polling averages. But in the newest polling one, I did put it as likely. Speaking of likely, we'll be immediately giving Colorado and New Mexico. We have nothing new from those states, unfortunately. There's just nothing to talk about there. We already know what Texas is going to be. We'll look at the polls for Texas anyways. So more of the same. We already saw these polls the other day. You see here, Trump is still favored to win by 7.3% in the polling averages. So the state will easily be a likely Republican state. And in fact, he'll probably win by more than that. Now let's again go right in, fill in all the safe Republican states that we just know Donald Trump is going to win with no talk whatsoever. We know Illinois will go to Kamala Harris. Now let's talk about these other battleground states. Let's start with Minnesota. All right, as we can see here in Minnesota, no changes whatsoever. Harris is still up by 5.5%. That just has not changed, so the state will remain likely Democratic. Hopefully we'll get more polling after the debates have ended. But as of right now, we just don't have anything brand new. The state continues to remain a likely Democratic state. Let's go to Wisconsin. I mentioned in my previous video how Wisconsin was Harris was starting to pull away. She was starting to pull away with the polling, because we can see here she's now up by 1.5%. The state was below 1%. Now it is above 1% for Kamala Harris. We do have some polling here that has Trump up, but this newest poll by CBS has Harris up. And in general, the RCP average has Harris up by 1.5%. So the state will be lean Democratic. It could change, but for now it is leaning towards her. Michigan, we already know what that's going to be, but we'll just fill in quickly. But let's look at the polling average for it. Yeah, you can see here, Harris remains. In fact, she's actually up by less than Wisconsin. Because look here in Wisconsin, look at this. Harris is up by 1.5% here, but in Michigan, she's only up by 1.2, which is quite surprising. So she really is doubling down on her efforts in Michigan. or sorry, in Wisconsin. But but despite that, in Michigan, she remains the favorite to win. We only have one poll here back on the 26th that has Trump up by anything, and that was only 1%. So Harris is clearly the favorite to win in Michigan, which is not surprising. It is definitely the most liberal out of all the battleground states. So let's go straight from here. Let's go straight to Pennsylvania now. I usually spend quite a long time talking about Pennsylvania in these videos. Again, I'm trying to keep this one a little bit quicker and shorter for you guys, so it's not 20 minutes long again. But I have to obviously, I already said all this in my previous video, but as you can see here, just look at this. It's a tie, it's a tie, it's a tie, it's a tie. Clearly, this state is, we already know how this state's going to be the deciding state in the election. That's just not even a shock. We know that's going to happen. And the state is honestly too close to call. Like, look at this. We have 4 ties on the screen right now. We have Harris is up here, Trump up here, Trump up here, Trump up here. So obviously we have to give it to somebody. So I'm just gonna do the same thing I did in my last video and award the state as a lean Republican state. But honestly, this is ridiculous. How close this is. Now, given the fact that Trump tends to be underestimated in Pennsylvania, I think he probably is the favorite to win. But to be fair to these polling, to the people that are conducting these polls, like CNN, these big groups, and Hill and Emerson and CBS News and all that, and of course we have the average itself as a tie. I have to be fair to that and just say that it's honestly too close to call, but to award to somebody, we have this poll right here, which is the only one that we have from recently that has somebody up and has Trump up by 2, so we have to go off of that. So Trump is clearly the favorite to win in Pennsylvania now. Let's move on over to Ohio. Ohio, we haven't gotten any brand new polling. The newest poll we have was the same poll I mentioned recently back on my last video. See here, from the 5th, we can see Trump is up by 10% in the newest poll, and New York, the average is up by 9%. Remember that Ohio is where J.D. Vance is from, which is Donald Trump's running mate, so clearly the state is likely. However, for the heck of it, because the state is technically, because J.D. Vance is coming from Ohio, I can technically put the state as safe just because it's very close to being a safe state. It's very close to that. Plus the fact that J.D. Vance is coming from that state, there's no competition in Ohio whatsoever. So I will put in state as safe just because there's just no way it's not gonna happen. It's just gonna go to Donald Trump with no doubt whatsoever. Just because of the fact that it's already so Republican and 2, J.D. Vance is from there. So put those 2 together, I would say it is a safe Republican state. Let's go to Georgia now. We do have new polling, and this is big. I clearly stated in my last video, we saw how Harris took over in the lead in Georgia. You can see here she was ahead by 0.1%. Then she actually went up to 0.2%, but now that has changed. We have new polling. This one has as a tie, and this one right here has Donald Trump up by 3%. As a result, the RCP average has Trump up by 0.3%. So Trump has now regained momentum, and he is the favorite to win in Georgia. That is major news. So Donald Trump is surging in several battleground states. He has put Pennsylvania too close to call. He is fighting for Nevada. He's currently losing it by a slim margin. He is surging like crazy in Arizona, and now he's retaking Georgia again. This is major news, major developments. Donald Trump is now once again the favorite to win in Georgia. So let's just go from there. We already know what Florida's going to be. Not going to look at it's going to be like the Republican. I'm not going to bother looking at Florida anymore. We know what it's going to be. Let's go to North Carolina. All right, we have new polling, and this is major. So we have this poll right here and this poll right here from the 7th and the 8th that has both of them have Harris up by 3%. That seems hard to believe for a state like North Carolina, which was supposed to go to Clinton and Biden, both in 2016 and 2020, and it still went to it still went Republican to Donald Trump. So I mean, we can just look at this. It should be an option here. Oh, it's not here. That's weird. There usually is an option here to go back to previous last minute. It's not here for this one. Well, anyways, point is that in the polling from 2020 and 2016, North Carolina was supposed to go to Clinton, especially in 2016. It was supposed to go to Clinton. She was up by like 1% or more in the polling like all the time. And it's still to Donald Trump. It's still to Donald Trump in 2020. I personally think that this is a little bit of a stretch. I just don't see the state going Democratic because even when polling says it goes Democratic, it still goes Republican. North Carolina is just one of those states that you can see the attempt of Democrats to win in that state, but they just don't. for some reason. The North Carolinians, when it comes time to vote, they get out there and they vote Republican. So I don't see it. I don't see this changing. But even still, with both these polls in, the RCP average is still 0.1% in favor of Trump. So regardless of those two debates, the state will remain lean Republican. With that, we can already see Donald Trump already wins the election with 280 electoral votes. So already that would give him the win. Let's finish the map off though with let's go to Virginia. We know Virginia is going to be probably a likely Democratic state, but we'll look at the polling just because. No changes at all. See, this is you can clearly see it's barely a likely state. It's just the newest poll has it only as a 3%. This was by the Roanoke College, so Roanoke gets in Virginia. Even they only have it up by 3%, so it's extremely close. And with that, we're just going to quickly fill in the rest of these states because we just know what they're going to be. New York will be safe, as well as the states of all these states right here. D.C. will be safe. Will safe for Democrats. So will Maryland. Delaware, New Jersey will be a little bit more competitive, but they will still be likely Democratic. The only Republican thing we have to put up here is that Donald Trump will easily win the 2nd district of Maine, but will lose the 1st district and will likely lose the state as a whole. And with that, we'll look at New Hampshire, which is our last battleground state. It's the only state that Donald Trump might have a chance of winning in this northeastern region. So we'll take a look at that right now. And again, New Hampshire, just no changes. We have no new polling or anything like that. So the state remains likely for Kamala Harris, although that could change. But for now, that's just going to be it. With that, there you go. That is your entire election right there. Donald Trump right now, in all the polling averages, is on track to win this election with 281 electoral votes. That's all I have to say for you guys. Make sure you guys pay attention tomorrow because the debates are going to be coming out. We'll be talking about those a lot. We're going to definitely be seeing how these polls change after those debates. And of course, we have to see who's going to win the debate. Who will win that debate tomorrow? Because predictions, I think we're going to see Donald Trump as usual. It'll be the same Donald Trump we saw back in June when he debated Biden. Maybe he'll do something different. I don't know. Kamala Harris, I think she's just going to be a little bit like, She's just going to be bland. Nothing really to talk about. She'll talk bland, say usual bland things, and just overall won't do much to really help her cause or her campaign. It'll just kind of be more of her usual. She had not a campaign, but she had an interview recently. And if you listen to her talking, it's just kind of like, nothing about what she says or the way she talks really gets you to listen or be emboldened by her words. She just kind of talks. So it's nothing really to be shocked about. I think Donald Trump will take some shots at her in the debate. I think he'll call out more of the problems he called out with Biden, similar to that. And I think she'll just kind of say, maybe we'll see if she can, maybe she'll get mad at Trump or anything like that, but I just don't. I think she's just going to kind of stand there and talk. I just don't think she's going to say much to really help her campaign or anything that's going to really catch attention. And I think Trump is going to be the same Trump we saw back in June. So that's just what I have to say. I think that's what the debate's going to look like tomorrow. But it's coming out tomorrow. It's going to be here in less than a day. So we'll have to see what happens when the debates are actually online. So or on the air, I should say. So when it's on the air, make sure you're watching. It's going to be a very major moment in this campaign and in the run-up to this election. And we'll be here talking about it and seeing what changes afterwards. So that's me all for today. Thank you guys for coming out. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, leave a comment, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.